What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also co-host and co-host the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored. Let me just adjust the camera a bit. All right. Blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that movement, we've reached directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. You know what? I'm still not happy with this camera. So if you're listening to this, you don't know what I'm talking about, so that's okay. All right, and we are excuse me, you know what, I'm going too fast, so let me slow down and get a sip of water. All right, we are moisturized, hydrated, etc. We're broadcasting live on Saturday, January 17th, halfway. See, I'm still not 100%. Okay, halfway more now in the second half of the first month of January, and it's primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Now Lala is not with us today. She's not feeling well. We also reached out to Dr. Tati. She's not feeling well. So I know a number of people this winter have been fighting health challenges, but we do have the foundational person of this show. Lala is not here, but Aisha is here. What is going on?
We had a midday burst of snow.
Oh,
we woke up to snow, just like light flurries, like a little dusting, and then about 1:30 or so, it started to pick up and stick, and it stopped so far, but it's supposed to snow overnight into tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, we got a little bit of light snow this morning around 11:30 here in Toronto. Nothing compared to what we got on Thursday. Now, Thursday was a whole different vibe. Thursday, we got hit with about 20 inches.
Oh, wow.
You guys didn't get any?
No, we got just rain, and we got the cold. Thursday was actually nice. Yesterday was cold. We got the cold yesterday. The cold front came down yesterday. So we went from maybe 48, 49 on Thursday to 22 yesterday.
Ooh. So we've gone the opposite. We were really cold and we've gone up. We're about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. We're supposed to dip down, and for the rest of next week, supposed to be very cold. You guys didn't get hit with any snow at all?
No, we didn't get any. But I was supposed to go, run up Hartford way, pick up my daughter, and I'm like, the snow's so bad, she's gonna have to spend the night at my sister's.
Wow.
Because it's especially if it's gonna snow overnight, she works at a hospital, so
right,
they don't have they don't close. Kids still get sick, adults still get sick, and they 100%. Need healthcare professionals.
100%. Yeah, the healthcare field is a true 24/7, 365. Let me ask, give us a win you've had since we last spoke.
Well, I've been very good at when I spoke last week about everybody needs to really try and read more and read 3 things and write and all that. I've been very good this week of doing that every day, and just
fantastic.
Yeah. And there's something else that I started doing too, and I think I mentioned this last week, but I think it's something I did when I was a child. We did talk about this last week, but I've gone back to reading the dictionary.
I don't know if you talked about the dictionary. I think
we
talked about more note We take
Right.
note
When I was
stuff.
younger, I used to when I was like a kid, I read the dictionary. And it's how you get to know words, what things mean. And I started that again. And what really prompted me that was classes start again. And so in this program that I'm in, I'm doing some research on how we come to know things.
Mm.
But also this idea, the idea of nation versus country, and how our common understanding, because I think a lot of what's going on in the world right now is because a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between nation and country. The definitions, although we use them interchangeably, the definitions are very different. And so I asked myself that question, like, are these words different? And when I started that, I'm like, well, let me start doing this. Then it rolled into me really going back to reading the dictionary again. And I realized this too, because it's something that happens when I also see, trolls, whether it be on this show or it be on something else. And when people resort to name calling and belittling of people, it's because they don't have the language or no words to express a point of view. So they go to the thing that they know. Well, I can do this. It's a quick fix for them. But people who really know words, know things, and are interested in information, whether it prove their points or not, but just how we know things, those are people who really can have dialogue, have conversation, have discussions, and not only add to the discourse, but also take away from it and learn something. So I think learning is a lifelong thing. I don't ever want to stop learning, because I think when you stop learning, you die. Everything, you're not living with purpose anymore. And so I encourage everybody to really invest in that, and invest in yourself, and invest in knowledge and knowing things, and continue to learn, because that is really, I think that's the only way that we're going to survive any of the drama that we're dealing with here in this country. But I think it's what really engages people across the world.
Well, it's interesting. I say things like, the more you know, the more you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And also, too, if you're not learning, you're not growing. So some people may not want to grow.
Yeah.
Fully understand that. But the more you know, the more you need to know. And I just believe if you're not learning, you're not growing.
No, you really aren't. And it's I don't ever want to be that person that doesn't grow. And I wrote something down again, that when I was teaching research methods to my undergrads, the thing I used to tell them about research is that when you think about observation, we tend to think that, okay, if my theory is something like this, and this is a theory, the example I used to give them, the theory is that all crows, or the hypothesis, all crows are black. We believe we know this, right? So in order to test that hypothesis, that theory, when you go out, how do you think you would approach it? What would you start doing?
Dealing with that assumption, you mean?
Yeah. How would you go out and observe?
Well, there's a number of ways I could maybe look online, or go out and look.
And look and do what?
Look
at all the crows and count the number of black crows you see, right? That's the wrong approach. The thing is that no, that's not how real science and real research is done. They go looking for the thing that is the exception, and they measure the exception. So for example, if you go out, you're not going out to look for the black crows. You're going out to try and test your hypothesis wrong. So you go and you start looking and trying to count the crows that are not black. And when you don't find any, then that is what then the theory.
Friday morning vibes on high. Dr.
Hold on here. Something weird's going on here. Hold on. Okay, we're good now. Sorry about that.
But the theory and the hypothesis then becomes true, because you find that there are no exceptions to this theory.
And it's interesting in the culture that we're in right now, science research by so many people now is being pushed back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that is, and that, I use that example because that's one of the examples that I was taught in undergrad. And so I think when I encourage people to read, I'm not saying just go read like your regular newspapers like New York Times and things that people are accustomed to reading. I'm saying go and look at the peer-reviewed research, the journals, because remember, those things have to pass a lot of scrutiny before they're even published and put out into the ether. Those things, for example, if you read peer-reviewed journals, the information, how they got their information and got there is there in their references. If it's a research study, whether it be a social study or it be a scientific one, their methodologies, how they got to those conclusions is there. And if you were to repeat it the same way, you would get the same results that they did. That's why science, any kind of science, whether it be social science or the physical sciences, rely on peer review research because it's been tested. It has data that shows it's reliable. So if somebody else goes to repeat it, they will get the same results. And you also get to see, okay, who did they actually look at in this? And then that's where you see there are gaps in research. So it's like, for example, if somebody was doing research and they said, well, all nursing mothers, produce X amount of milk first time out. Well, if they only looked at 5 women, how are they saying that this is the experience of millions, hundreds of millions of women, right? So we see that there are gaps in that. And at that point, you can say, hey, you probably need to test that on more people and look at what more people are saying about that. So it really is, really finding out how people come to know things. And I'm sitting here and I'm open to looking at the sources that other people look at too, but we have to also vet our sources. We have to be better at doing that. And especially with AI, really entering the fray in information dissemination and how we come to learn and know things, it's really, it's going to be more and more challenging.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And with the AI vetting those sources, and a lot of people probably aren't when they're doing their AI research or not going through their sources at all. So we're in a really interesting time now in regards to fact checking, etc. People say, well, I have a lot of wins this week, but one big win is there was something I was trying to work with Aisha and Lala in regards. There's a feature that YouTube has called collaboration. So I can, when we do one of these broadcasts, I can share it on their platform. And I had sent them a number of things and it wasn't working properly. And during the past week, I was doing just some research on YouTube on it. And a lady from Africa showed how to do it, and it was different than anyone else. And I tried it her way and it works. So now you will see a lot of even old shows on their platforms also. I figured out the process and I've tested it with a few people. So it works. So I am very happy. See, it's not about me, it's through me. See, family? It's not about me, it's through me. We're going to go for a quick break. And there's so many different stories. Even up to today, there was stuff going on, but I didn't want to talk about today because it will just shake your head. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a quick break, come back, do a little housework, and then we're going to get into whatever we're going to get into today. You never know. So we'll be back in about 10 seconds.
You are watching Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala,
where Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lockheed try to make sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
I was gonna play something else, but I thought after I just talked about it, well, try to make sense of the nonsense going on. I thought it'd be apropos. All right, girlfriends chat with Aisha, Lala, and Jules. Did you guys meet this week at all?
We have not done one yet. We haven't decided. We have to decide on a time to record because now I have an in-person class on our usual time. So
Well, even then, so and this is the plan still to go to YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. So even then, a lot of this, some of these I'll be able to share on their channel if they want to get there. But those are the links from Patreon days, the Substack days. There's also a Primetime store link.
We have to add more. We do have to add more stuff. Lala and I are gonna have to get together and have a chat.
Yeah.
When she's feeling better.
Yes, absolutely. Discord group, there is the link, or email me at dr.vibe, the drvibeshow.com. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show and hit the subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show and hit the notification button, not the YouTube button, the notification button. And also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Substack. And if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of our on the platforms I'm a part of, or the ladies are, email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And we did mention our dear friend Dr. Tachi earlier, who's not feeling well, but hey, a lot of the content you see here is also featured on a platform that she runs called Indie Soup TV, independent content creators platform that she started on YouTube about 26 months ago, that has 28,000 subscribers, which makes that site one of the top 4% subscriber wise on YouTube. There you go. And just for others, if you have a question or take, you can also call in via your favorite digital device. Go to your favorite browser, callme.rove.com, put in the code FSPL8L, go to the next screen, fill out the particulars, and you can hear from us. So let's get to our first conversation piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a video introduction of it. So I'm going to take Aisha and myself off stage.
Did you know Minnesota just saw the largest immigration enforcement operation in its history? In December 2025, Operation Metro Surge brought 2,000 federal agents to the Twin Cities, targeting alleged fraud, but leaving entire communities shaken. Homes were raided, some residents were arrested by mistake, and tragic incidents unfolded, including the fatal shooting of Renee Good, a U.S. citizen, by an ICE agent. Another man was shot during a traffic stop, and reports of racial profiling and wrongful detention spread fear, especially among Somali and Latino families. Many parents kept their kids home from school. Businesses lost up to 80% of their revenue, and people avoided hospitals out of fear. In response, local leaders and organizations pushed back. The ACLU of Minnesota and the state's attorney general filed lawsuits, arguing the operation violated constitutional rights and targeted people based on race or religion. A federal judge even stepped in, restricting agents from detaining peaceful protesters without cause. Meanwhile, mutual aid groups, legal networks, and neighborhood patrols sprang up, showing the power of community solidarity. But the political fallout grew, with state and city officials condemning the operation as excessive and the Department of Justice launching investigations into their opposition. Through all this, one thing is clear: knowing your rights is more important than ever. If you or someone you know is affected by immigration enforcement, connect with local legal aid and advocacy groups. Stay informed, support your neighbors, and remember your rights matter.
All right, our first conversation piece, ICE in Minnesota, immigration enforcement, rights, and community impact. Aisha, what you say?
Now, this is why I'm looking at how we know things. What we're seeing before us is a rewriting of history in real time, right? It being told we didn't see what we know we saw. It's escalated again since yesterday, now that the Department of Justice is launching investigations into the governor and mayor, saying that they are obstructing federal officers from doing their job, giving press conferences and telling people if they're going to protest to stay peaceful is not obstructing federal agents from doing their job. Okay, what obstructing federal agents from doing their job looked like? It looked like George Wallace standing in the doors of the building at the campus of University of Alabama in 1963 with his National Guard to prevent the desegregation of that school, by one of the people being the late sister-in-law of former AG Eric Holder. Okay, so we're talking about Vivian Malone, and we're talking about that right there was obstruction. You know what Kennedy had to do? Kennedy had to federalize the Alabama National Guard in order for them to do something, because he was trying to prevent the integration of that school that the courts said had to take place. What we're seeing here, here's the thing. It's kind of illogical to expect people who are the victims of state violence to be silent and to not protest that, to just accept it. It's that violence like that is not okay. And these are not, yes, these are, you know what, these are targeted missions, like Christy Nome said, but the targets are everybody. And it's everybody because guess what? You know who they think the bad people are? If you do not worship, and I said this on social media, if you do not worship at the foot of Trump and MAGA, then you are considered one of the bad ones. There's no more this distinction between crime, actual physical crimes that people are victims of, and the crime, quote unquote, crime of not voting for Donald Trump. And this is why we are here. I mean, even my own state is under the threat, threatening to cut some funding February 1st, $2 billion worth of funding. My state puts in way more than that into the federal government. And here we are in this taxation without representation kind of thing going on right now, right? So I think that this issue of immigration enforcement, and let's be very clear, Minnesota has what, 1% of the total amount of undocumented people in their state, but they have more than 25% of ICE agents nationwide there right now. Make it make sense.
Well, some of the other developments I heard is, did Stephen Miller say this week that ICE agents are immune from any sort of prosecution for any of their acts? I think, and
that's why my senator, Richard Blumenthal, has introduced legislation in the Senate that would allow for people to sue ICE for the physical harm that they're causing. We're seeing assaults. I mean, the most disturbing thing to me that should have told anyone with any moral compass, any heart, to tell these people, hey, pull back, stop, you're being too aggressive, was a 6-month. Their family was coming back from a basketball game. They were trying to avoid the protests. They ended up driving there, trying to back up and turn and go a different direction. And they let off a flashbang, causing the airbags in the car, this family with 6 children in the car, to explode, and tear gas to get in, that a 6-month-old baby ingested. The mother found it. The mother stopped. He was foaming at the mouth, unconscious, not breathing. His mother had to go and give him CPR. 6-month-old baby. They weren't protesters. They were just trying to get home from a basketball game. And thankfully, this infant is, going to be okay. But what if he wasn't? What if he wasn't? I mean, that child is younger than Trump's second term in office. Trump's been in office almost a year. That child hasn't even lived a full year yet. And this is the damage. A disabled woman on her way to the doctor, they wouldn't take her to a doctor until she lost consciousness after they detained her. So these kinds of things are what's going on right now and what's going on there. And I don't think anyone wants to, anyone wants that in their community. But here's the thing, and I need for people to understand this. Even his own people, even if you support him, if you think he is not going to come for you, they're coming. They are coming. Because here's the thing, once they get rid of the rest of us, there's only going to be the red hats left. Anyone who wants power like that doesn't care if you support them or not. Because here's the thing, if he really cared, are your rents going down? Your mortgages, your can you get a mortgage? Can your kids, your adult children, afford to have apartments on their own? How's your health care? The subsidies expired. I know people's premiums went up. And the cost of groceries is still high. And what do they tell you? Oh, one piece of chicken, one piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and something else for $3. Eat that. But guess what? I'm building a ballroom that went from $200 million to now $400 million. And it's insane.
I heard something recently that was quite interesting, a perspective from a commentator.
Mm-hmm.
All this is going down in Minnesota. What social movement from a few years ago started because of an incident in Minnesota?
Well, the one after George Floyd, and you can't deny that's part of this. But here's the other part of it too. This is not about fraud. Like people have said, if it was about fraud, they'd send accountants, not ICE, right? And the person that has done this fraud thing, they've already been arrested and charged. And back in 2020 when he was president the first time. So are you saying that you didn't do your job the first time? I don't get this. But here's the thing. Because Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz as her running mate, you're going after his state. He's not running again. Why are you still there? But beyond that, I have a theory, and I haven't tested it yet, but I plan to, right? I don't think it has anything to do even with the race. It has to do with the fact that Tim Walz was the person who started calling them weird. And you know what a thin-skinned, little, tiny man doesn't like? They can dish it, but they can't take it. They don't like to be called names. Period. He didn't like being called weird. Well, guess what? He is weird. Because to me, it's weird that you won't release the Epstein files if you're completely innocent and you're not in them. That's weird. You know what's weird? Telling people that your cost of groceries is going down. Let me tell you something. I went to the grocery store the other day and I bought things so my daughter can take lunch to work, right? Just sandwiches, carrot sticks, and she likes to make wraps, things like that, right? I spent $115. And I was like, yeah, it was just 2 little bags of groceries. I'm like, it was $115. So don't tell me that the prices of groceries are going down. That was just for her lunch for a week, okay? That I didn't include anything for breakfast. I literally just went to buy those few things. I still have to buy groceries for the rest of life. But that was like, that to me is, it's, if you're willing to sit, it's, if you can be like, okay, you know what, fine. Yeah, I'm going to pay more on groceries. Yeah, my healthcare premium's going up. And you still are, in our comments, attacking us for telling you the truth, in other people's comments for attacking them telling the truth. If you still support him, then it's not about the cost of things. It's not about anything else other than he hates the people you hate, and you're okay with that, and that makes you feel good. But here's what I want to know. Complaining about all these people coming and taking your jobs. Well, guess what? The jobs report shows that Americans are losing their jobs still. And most of them were people who worked in government. Those were American citizens who lost their jobs. How about that? Let's talk about that. So this whole thing, it's it's really dangerous. It's going to grow. Minnesota is just the first state to really have this. They're going to see how this rolls out. But I also think that Democrats, on the other hand, also need to bear some weight in all this too, because they're starting to get mealy-mouthed on this issue. The fact that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are saying, "Oh, don't run on abolish ICE because you know what? People need to run on what's working in their area." How dare you tell the people who are the representatives of Minnesota not to run on something that right now is terrorizing their state? Right? It's absurd. But the other argument is that you can tie that to affordability, because if all their efforts are focused on this, none of their efforts are focused on bringing down the costs. Instead of the money that they're spending on these bonuses, here's the thing. Guess what? Your kids have student loans. Your kid might not be able to go to college because you can't afford it. But guess what? Those ICE agents, not only are they getting $150,000 salaries, they're getting $50,000 bonuses. They're getting their student loans repaid. They've got cars. They're getting brand new cars. They're getting all kinds of monetary incentives. But you still can't afford your rent. You still can't afford to go to the doctor. You still can't afford to eat just a regular meal. And they tell you, eat. Anybody that has ever raised a teenager, especially if you have a teenage boy, one piece of chicken, one piece of broccoli, they're telling you, here, this is what you can eat for $3 and shut up. We don't want to hear anything about it.
I want to get back to this whole situation, and okay, let's all right, we seem to have lost Aisha for a few moments. Okay, all right, she is back.
Power
All
surge.
right, we are back.
Yeah, we had a
All
power
right,
surge. Like
okay.
I said, the snow is messing
That's
with
all right. That's good.
But also
Yeah,
I
is this whole situation though a diversion? Is there because
but
I
yeah,
thought there was
I
an
think that
immigration.
yeah,
Go ahead.
but I just think that we're at a point right now. And I just think that we're at a point right now where, regardless if you supported this administration or not, we have to look critically at how this is changing the country. If you can be okay with this, what does that say about your moral character? Yeah.
Well, I just people only care about money. They don't care as long as they're getting ahead economically. Everything else is a wayside. Goes sideways. Okay, we're having some more technical challenges on Aisha's end, so let's hope that she'll be back in just a moment. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We had the Verizon Power thing. We've been having issues with Verizon service since Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
But I have
Okay,
my phone at the ready
you're still here. You're still with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this, what needs to what do you see for the future of this situation?
Let's see something.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
You can't? Okay.
Hold on.
All right, let's now. I think Aisha's gone to her phone. Her phone seems to be the most reliable thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But
All
basically, we're at a point where, if you're okay with this, it says more about your moral character than it does anything else. And you know what? I accept those people for who they are. That's just who they are. That is just what they like, what they want. And you know, this is who we are as a country. Then we can't if we're going to have people who can be okay with this, we can't sit here and say, oh, this isn't America. Yeah, it is. This is who we are. This is who we are. Because there are people who are okay with that. And they're okay with what it looks like to other people around the world. This is not playing good around the world. And let's not forget that, in this whole push for Greenland and everything, what makes you think they would want to be part of a country that is invading its own states?
Got you.
Who would want to be part of that? And not only that, but the threats and the bullying there are no different than the threats and the bullying here. Why would anyone want to be? Would you want to be ruled by someone who's coming and saying, give it to us, give us your land and your people, or else? Why would people want to willfully become that and then become a part of that democracy? Because they're also seeing that democracy clearly isn't working for the citizens. So, I mean, I just think that we're at a point where it really is a breakthrough point for us in this country. But I also think that it's also some of the same. And I don't have very many hopes for change, but I do know this. We always want more for our kids than we have for ourselves. Look at your kids right now, especially if you have kids in their early 20s. They're not getting more than we are getting or than we had. They're not. I mean, when I was my daughter's age, I had my own apartment. I could afford to have my own apartment by myself and pay for the rent by myself. I went and looked at an apartment the other day that was having a leasing special. The with my daughter, the apartment, $3,000 a month. And then they ask for kids, they ask for people to make 3.5 times the amount of rent per month in order to even qualify. So that is roughly what, $1,100? Who makes what 23-year-old, fresh out of college, fresh out of grad school, really just in the workforce, makes $11,000 a month? So yeah, bitch and complain about all the social stuff all you want, and be happy that he's doing this. Oh, sock it to those immigrants. But guess what? Your kids still can't afford to get their own apartment, start their own families, start their own lives. What did it get you? A participation trophy like he got the other day with the Nobel Prize?
So Jen Myers is in the house saying a like. So good to have you here, Jen. I had some keeping some watch on the comments. So comment here says that's not who we are, and we don't want them coming here and stealing billions of taxpayers' dollars. That's American abuse. And the same person says, on top of that, they don't contribute anything. They're on all kinds of assistance and aid, and they're thieves, and they hate America and don't need to be here and do not sympathize.
And those are the comments of someone who doesn't read. Because remember, we started this conversation about research and reading and vetting your sources. Guess what? You don't have to even read. You don't even have to read you don't have to go to any quote unquote liberal media. You don't even have to watch your news. You can literally go to the department websites, the Office of Budget and Management websites, and look at, you can pull the budgets for every department, and they have to tell you where the money goes, where it comes from, who it's going to. They have the data on how many people qualify for public assistance who are immigrants. Undocumented people don't have a social security number. That is the one thing that you definitely need in order to get public assistance in this country. How do I know that? Because I went and read the regulations. So, the question, I guess the fact that they asked was they were inquisitive on one hand, but on the other hand, just spilled out a bunch of drivel that makes no sense and is not true. Because here we go. This is about what I said before about how misinformation and disinformation spreads. If someone tells me that, you know what? I've heard that before. Because somebody has said that, guess what I went and did? I went and found out the truth. I went to go look. And if someone tells you that and you readily believe it, then you're just not a curious person. Because I want to know things. And I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying, hey, before I go and share this and spit this out to people because I was told, I have to do two things. I have to, one, make sure it's actually true. And then also ask myself, if I'm reading the truth, but I would rather believe the lie, why do I want to believe the lie?
Okay. Some more comments that we have here. Someone saying you are offering support if you are supporting 47 and his billionaire friends who are fascists and what's happening now, if it's not stopped, is going to destroy America. Be careful. Autocrats are evil.
Well, you know what though? Here's the thing. It's also about how this goes back to the misinformation that we're fed in this country. Do you know what all this stuff that we're going through right now is really a lot of the stuff that also happened right before the start of the Civil War? People like to liken this to Nazi Germany. Well, if you've ever read any of their disgusting writings, which I have, they do tell you the truth. They were inspired by America and America's system of segregation and racial segregation and Jim Crow. That was how Hitler admired how particularly the American South had their system of racial segregation set up. Because remember, that stuff predates the Third Reich.
Okay.
So when we say, "Oh, that's not who we are," yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But we can be. But the thing is, we can be better. And I think that's the part that we need to lean into. Yeah, this is who we are right now, but guess what? We can be better. And the bottom line is that at some point, people in this country are going to have to realize that we need each other more than we need those people at the top who are running the government. Because you look at this administration right now in particular, it is filled with more billionaires and millionaires than there are in your local community. There are more billionaires and millionaires in the administration than are probably in your local community. And here's the thing: if Kristi Noem is going to do this ICE thing, does she need a $172 million jet to do it? You're okay with that?
All right, let's go to some more comments. Fast and Furious. Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. Jen, no problem. You're there every show, so don't worry about that. Dr. Tachi says most of these, quote, people, unquote, don't have critical thinking skills. So I'm not expecting much from people who make comments like what you just put up. Jason Walker, Jamaica, haven't heard from you. Says undocumented people cannot get benefits.
Thank you.
Another comment here: knowledge can lead to understanding. Person who is supposedly from Canada says your country's already gone. Dr. Ted says absolutely to what you're saying, Aisha, and also saying it's exactly who the U.S. is. We can be better is the desire there to be better.
Right. And see, and here's the thing. I want people to understand this and get this really clear and be very, I want to be very clear about this. We're never going back to the 1950s. Get that thought out of your head. It's not happening. And you can't do it by force, because guess what? The generations that remember that time, there are more people alive now who do not remember that. And you're not going to be able to take away the rights that they do have, that they've known. That is just it. They're trying to by force. They're trying to by force. And you know what? I guess there are a lot of us who know what this is about. This is about the fear, the browning of America. We know this. We know we're getting closer to that point. Like I've said before, Gen Alpha is majority minority already. Gen Z is the most diverse of the older ones. So we're at that point already. But I guess, fear, I guess, is what people are afraid of. Fear. Let me tell you something. Do you know, I talk to a lot of people of color. I talk to a lot of Black people. We don't care. We have no desire to return what was done to us. You know why? Mostly because we know how bad that was. We know nobody should go through that. It's common freaking sense. But more than anything, we don't care. We don't care. We just want to live our lives and be happy. And contrary to what so many on that side think, we wake up in the morning, we don't think about you. We go through our day, we have to interact, but it's not in our heads. The thought that I walk by or I talk to white people all the time in the store, whatever. I don't think, oh, I hate this. Why are they? That never occurs to my mind. It's just a person walking down the street. It's just a person at the store in the line behind me. I don't care. I just want to get my groceries and go home and cook dinner for the fam and sit and talk. When we're at home and we have conversations, guess what? We don't talk about you like that unless something like this happens and we're forced to. We do have conversations. There was a video I saw, and this young white woman, she was trying to explain. She's like, you don't understand. From early ages, they have to teach their babies that they could potentially become the victim of a hate crime. She's like, 4 and 5-year-olds are learning how to protect themselves in interactions so they don't become a victim of a hate crime. No child should have to do that. We don't plan on paying you back when the country, when the demographic shift that is happening does happen. Don't care. We just want to live, work, pay our bills, have a happy life, sit, kick back, get some rest on our days off. And that's it. We want to see our families grow up and be prosperous and healthy. That is it. We actually have more values and things in common, with the exception of that we don't. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I think is, okay, I'm up. Where's the puppy? I want to play with the puppy this morning. And that's the first thing I do every morning. That's it. And I don't talk about this unless I have to. Like, for example, if this stuff wasn't going on right now, y'all remember my social media feed from a couple backs? It was like, what? Oh, yeah, she popped in here, popped in there. I told you, unless something happens, I'm trying to pull back from social media. When I'm done with this show, you know what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go sit and watch BritBox.
Okay, let me jump in for a few seconds. Comment here, someone saying ICE is Gestapo. Destiny Savory from the Niagara Falls area of Canada says, good evening. Person from Canada says, we're okay in Canada. I worry for all of you. Dr. Tachi says, there's also the realization that the so-called elites will no longer be able to lean into their mediocrity. they would actually have to get up and do something, but they don't have the skills to.
Right.
Also, we've got someone here asking, who will lead the revolution?
That I don't know. And I don't think any one movement should have one person leading it. And the reason I say that is because the thing we know about the civil rights movement is that when the leader that has been elevated dies, the movement then will fall apart and disperse afterwards. So I think this movement is going to have to be one that every person can become a leader. If you're in your own community, I think it's going to be hyper local, and I think that in those hyper local spaces, that people are going to really, take on leadership roles themselves. And here's the thing about the civil rights movement. I think that most people forget. You think it was just a whole lot of adults marching because we see the pictures. A majority of a lot of those protests were done by college students and high school students, middle school students, young people, because it was a movement for the future, for youth, right? So that youth can have a better future. And I think one of the things that people misunderstand about it is that it also wasn't just a response to a reactive response to different things and spontaneous gatherings and spontaneous marches. No, these things were very well planned, very strategically planned. Like, we're going to talk about Claudette Colvin at the end of the show. But for example, the Montgomery bus boycott, people seem to think that, right, that, oh, Rosa Parks was just tired. No, they had been planning a bus boycott for a while. It just happened that day that the boycott started because Rosa Parks got arrested. But the plan to test this started years prior. And so I think that how people decide to move forward and do any kind of protesting in opposition to what they see happening in their communities, in other communities, is going to really have to take a lot of strategic organization, but also if you're going to try and model it after the more modern day civil rights movement, you're going to have to relearn what you think you know about how that movement operated.
Okay. Dr. Chachi says, indeed, the fact that something that we want to, quote, pay you back, unquote, is actually ascribing more importance to yourself than actually exists. We don't actually care. And also she says, indeed, Aisha, separate, decentralized movements are probably what it will look like.
Yeah. And guess what? I think because how this is playing out in different spaces, that means the movement in that space is going to have to be tailored to that space, to that moment. What's going on in Minneapolis is happening because an ICE agent murdered a woman, period. How it's happening other places is, like locally. I'll tell you, ICE was in my state this week and were tear gassing people who were protesting. It wasn't a large gathering. I was up that way. I didn't even know there was a protest. That's how few people there were. And they weren't being obstructive or anything because guess what? Traffic was traveling. It was a normal day in the capital city. But they are there now. Let me tell you why they are there. They are there because my governor sued the government. My government sued the government because they are trying to take taxpayer dollars from our residents. If we put in more billions into the government and only get that too, that's our taxpayer dollars. I don't understand why you get to keep it. Not only that, keep it and not account for it. And here's the thing. You know what? You can be mad. You can love what ICE is doing all you want. What I need to know is why you aren't concerned why your president has a secret bank account in Qatar, where he just deposited $500 million of your tax dollars because you're paying the taxes on these tariffs because he can get to it easy. Get to it easy for what? And you're the only person that has access to that? That should make you mad. Not people who, are born here and can speak Spanish. Are you mad because you don't know your native tongue? Go learn it. That's all you got to do. Go learn it and start talking. But I mean, are you upset that you don't know what they're saying? You think they're talking about you? What makes you think you're that important to them? So I honestly invite people to be angry about more things. You're mad about you don't like people getting SNAP. That's $36. If you make $50,000 a year, that's $36 a year. Think of it this way. You're not paying somebody else for food. You're basically paying insurance in case one day you pay your car insurance, which is much more than that, and don't complain. And that's in case you get into an accident. You never get that back. But that $36 is insurance that in case you fall on hard times, in case there is a stock market crash like there was in 1929, 1930, and you can't feed your family, there is this assistance available to you, right? Mad about that $36, but you're not mad about the $4,000 of your tax money in that $50,000 salary that is going to the department, quote unquote, Department of War. To do what? Oh, yeah. The, what is it, 800 million, I think they said it's going to cost to rebrand it as the Department of War. Versus it's not going to support the military, it's not going to military checks, it's not going into protecting military families when people are deployed. It's not going for any of that. It's going for branding and swag. But you're mad about $36. It's about being concerned about the right things, right?
Okay. Let's move to another conversation piece. So we'll introduce this with another video. So myself and Aisha are going to go off for a second. And the video is going to, we get it going here. All right, here we go.
What if your healthcare costs could finally go down and you had more control over your coverage? That's the promise behind Trump's great healthcare plan, announced in January 2026. The plan aims to cut drug prices by making sure Americans pay no more than people in lower-cost countries, and it expands access to over-the-counter medicines. Instead of sending subsidies to insurance companies, the plan would put money directly into your health savings account, letting you shop for the insurance you want. It promises a 10 to 15% drop in ACA premiums and $36 billion in taxpayer savings. Insurers would have to publish clear, plain English comparisons of rates and coverage, while hospitals and providers must post their prices. There's also a new Trump RX platform for discounted prescriptions. Supporters say it puts money in your pocket, but critics warn about coverage gaps.
All right.
Can I tell you something?
Plan.
Can I tell you something? A lot of the things that were mentioned. Do you want to know what? Did you already know you had those? It's called the ACA. He's trying to rebrand the ACA and put his name on what was Barack Obama's signature achievement. Because the only thing that they don't mention in their plan is pre-existing conditions, which means a lot of Americans would be kicked off their insurance. That's the other thing, is that by doing that, it allows for insurance companies to kick people off. If anyone who's old enough to remember the HMO PPO disaster of the 90s, that's what they're trying to go back to. And this thing about, we were going to lower ACA premiums. Well, guess what did that? The subsidies. So basically, you're going to do it by doing what? You know how they would have to do that? By doing subsidies, the ones that they let expire, and putting money into your health savings account so that you can pay the insurance companies directly. It's a one-time $2,000 payment, period, flat off. I read the plan. So, the concept of the plan. So, that it's a one-time $2,000 payment, not recurring. So you're not going to get it every month, and you're not going to get it yearly. You're going to get it once. That's it. And when you spend that $2,000, that's it. Period. So I don't know about any of you out there. I know I have one prescription that's $2,300 a month, and without insurance, I'd still have to pay $300 for it, but I wouldn't be able, but that and other medications, I take several medications per day. I wouldn't be able to afford to even live with all those medications, having to pay all those. Probably my medications probably run about probably $8,000 a month. Now, even if they drop the cost, right? It's still a lot for a lot of people, plus the insurance premium. Because the thing is that even if you can get insurance, the premium, nobody, put it this way, $2,000 wouldn't even cover the premiums for a year for a family of 4. Not when they're paying $500 a month for insurance coverage, and that's through an employer healthcare plan. In 4 months, they'll be done with that. So what happens the other 8 months of the year? So again, the devil's in the details. You have to go and read these things for yourself. And look, and here's the thing. I looked at what the things that the bullet points, because that's basically what they are, that they listed there, side by side by what the ACA in its form prior to the expiration of the subsidies did. Folks, there wasn't much of a difference. The only difference was that one-time $2,000 payment. That's it. And then remember, that one-time $2,000 payment that goes in the HSA account, I don't think he knows how HSA accounts work, but you can't use that to pay your premium. That's for things like medications and medical supplies, like if you need a walker or like surgical stockings, those kinds of things. Yeah. So you still have to pay your premiums anyway. In addition to, most people don't ever, like, I had a medical ACA account for a while at one point in time. And I decided I didn't need it because I think this was like when I was younger, because I never used it. The things that I could get with that, I never tapped into. If I paid my, pay copays, could I pay copays with it? Sure. But I had an employer that had a 100% match. So I did not have a copay at the doctor for regular checkups.
So if I have permission to interrupt, so let me understand what 47 proposed really doesn't differ than the Obamacare that his party wants to not approve?
Correct. With the exception of it doesn't cover, ACA will cover pre-existing conditions. So for example, if you're a family of 4 and you have a child with diabetes and you have to go and you go to next year annual enrollment, sign up for your health care, they will not cover that child because the child has a precondition of juvenile diabetes. This is the PPO HMO complex that we got out of in the 90s, which is why people wanted the ACA, because especially back then, you could not get covered with pre-existing conditions. Not only could you not get coverage, but for example, some insurance companies would say, okay, you can enroll in your job's healthcare plan, fine, but we will not cover those pre-existing conditions. So say you have asthma, you get a new job at that point and you sign up for your healthcare coverage for, your job. Well, It's not going to cover your asthma medication because you had asthma before you signed up for the healthcare plan. But if you happen to break your arm while you're on the plan, it'll cover that, but it won't cover your asthma medication. So you would still have to pay for that doctor. You'd still have to pay for those medicines out of pocket, even though you have healthcare coverage that doesn't cover it. Now with the ACA, they cannot reject you for having a pre-existing condition, and they have to cover the pre-existing condition. And then that $2,000, like I said, that one-time $2,000 thing into a health savings account. And also too, I think most people who visit a doctor, most people with common sense, most people who just live know that $2,000 in healthcare does not go quick.
Far.
Does not go far. Does not go far, and it goes quickly, right? And not only that, but seeing that, oh, I'm going to lower healthcare premiums, I'm going to lower this, lower. Well, you have to have the pharmaceutical companies in agreement with that. And see, and then I have these questions, because if you are going to offer these discounts through Trump RX, and I'm paying, you're getting discount because I'm paying you for those men. Where's that money going? Because Trump RX, I think, is a .com, not a .gov. But I'm not sure. But see, that's the other part that's tricky too. Well, Trump RX, where does the money go? Who's getting the money? Because it's because, like with the chips, like the little chips that he did with Intel, he said the government is, no, that's going to him directly in his pocket. So you have to start asking these kinds of questions when he throws out these things. It's like, okay, so where's that money going? If that's the money that's going to the government, can we see this? Because all these billions and billions and trillions of dollars that are coming in, then we should not be in debt. And so this healthcare plan, like everything else, is not a plan at all. It's when you see those people on the street with the cards, and they're mixing the cards and tell you which one's the queen. That's what this is. And he's doing this, but guess what? There's no queen.
From what I've read and heard, it doesn't sound like it's going to get very far.
No. And here's the thing.
Unless he does an executive order, like, and it sounds like 47 hardly goes to Congress for anything anyways.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's just really hard when people get used to something, particularly especially the pre-existing condition thing, to take it away from them. This one of the saddest stories I heard at that time when before the ACA and insurance companies could reject coverage was a woman gave birth with a baby that was born with muscular dystrophy, and the hospital would not cover the birth of the child or what was needed in the NICU with that child, because guess what? Pre-existing condition. Think about that. People are born with pre-existing conditions. Some kids are born with asthma. Babies are born with diabetes all the time. Pre-existing conditions. So is that even fair? They came into the world this way. And there are infants that are born with cancer. The people who are so concerned with the pro-life people, you would think that this is the one thing that they would be like, wait a second. Nah, pre-existing condition, that's a right to life, right?
The healthcare journey continues on in the United States, the long and winding road. We'll see what goes up with it next. Next conversation piece. 47 gave a very interesting interview recently to the New York Times. 2 hours of various thoughts, quotes. Aisha, what are your takes and thoughts on it?
Well, he did the New York Times, and then he did the Reuters one. The Reuters one is really the one that he came up with. But he invited 4 people from the New York Times to sit there and try and convince them about the Minnesota thing, the video thing. I think we talked about that briefly last week. This most close interview with Reuters. I read about the Reuters thing in New York Times. That's what I sent to you. So he did this interview where he said the thing that got me was him saying that he doesn't think we should have elections. That, you know, and the logic was because, you know, it's a very what did he say it was? It was a very kind of mind trip thing that you could lose control of Congress. Well, that's how it happens. He said we shouldn't even have the midterms. People listen to that. People are like, oh, he can't do that because states control. Yeah, he does. But yeah, he can't because states do control their elections. However, it was what he said after that you should be concerned, was that I should have just seized the voting machines in 2020. No, again, states still control elections, federal and local. So, and let me be very clear. That is the reason why he is trying to withhold $2 billion from my state, because my state refuses to give him the names, addresses, social security numbers, birth dates, all that information of registered voters of every registered voter in the state. Not just people, because every state has a Secretary of State. That is literally what they do to make sure that people who can't vote or who aren't eligible to vote don't. But private citizens should not have their information collected. It's like, what, wouldn't you be upset if the government decided to walk in the bathroom with you? Apparently they are, though. ICE has done that. But I mean, honestly, who wants your state to turn over your information like that? For them to do what with it? What do they do with it after they look at it? Do they go looking for your ballot? I mean, and why should they get to determine whether or not you are eligible to vote when every state has their own requirements? Because that's what the people voted for, right? So I think the fact that, yeah, he might not be able to stop the process of the elections, but that thing about seizing voting machines, what do you think ICE is training to do right now? What do you think all this is about? What they're training to do right now? So even people who are like, oh yeah, don't take him. No, take him literally and seriously. Because if he believes that's his one regret from then, what makes you think that he's not going, given the chance, he's not going to not do it now? That to me is absurd. Anyone who thinks that he won't try is absurd. Why do you think you have Stephen Miller out there, every other word out of his mouth is insurrection, so they can invoke the Insurrection Act? And he has said this before, if he invokes the Insurrection Act, we might not have elections. He had said this before. He said this in his first term. And I need people to be very clear. I think we've had a lot of people who were just so inundated with stress in his last term that the 4 years after have forgotten the things from that first term that he said he wanted to do and tried to do, but there were people who stopped and held the line. He doesn't have those people now. Everybody is in alignment with him on doing the worst of the worst. to everybody. I mean,
Aisha,
everybody.
what do people need to push back? Now, I'm going to give you I was listening to a commentator
Mhm.
today, and he said, where's Barack Obama? Where's Bush? Why aren't they saying anything? Why aren't they, the two people that could probably, more than the Democrats themselves, the two individuals, especially Barack Obama, why aren't they speaking up?
What is Barack Obama going to say to the man that hates him more than anything? The man for whom he lives rent free in his head.
But
Donald Trump went on a rant about Barack Obama winning the Nobel Peace Prize the other day in the middle of a meeting with oil magnates, right? Because he's mad about that thing. Why do you think he wanted it so much? Because of that. So it's like, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? George Bush is the most feckless of them all, but you got to remember he's staying out of it because why? Because now he's not going to go down as the worst president in modern history. Donald Trump has done a lot to repair the legacy of George W. Bush. He's not saying anything, but then again, here's the thing. Got to remember too that even though they have influence in the public eye, they're still no more powerful than the rest of us because each of us has one vote. Each of us has a voice. Mm-hmm. Because guess what? Even if Barack Obama was able to speak and to speak out and speak up, he did in the 2024 election, and look where we are. So it is not going to be about those people who have those connections. It's really going to be about the people on the ground floor. And I'm going to be very clear with Democrats. Stop. No one ever says this no one ever says to Republicans that you need to go and try and peel off some Democrats. But people are always saying that to Democrats. Oh, you need to appeal to some Republicans, to independents. And you know why they say that? Because they recognize that Democrats are a big tent party. But you know what Democrats need to focus on? Stop it. Stop it. Don't try and go after their people. Because when they do, they divert energy, money, resources to that end. When guess what? There were 90 million people who just didn't vote last time. Go for the people who didn't vote. There were more people who didn't vote than there are people who are disaffected Republicans and independents that will come along. Go to the people who didn't vote. Because guess what is more effective? One-on-one interaction. Do you know that a lot of people who are elected to local offices, why they get people to vote for them? Because they make more than one contact with them, one-on-one. People who weren't going to vote. Well, they came and they talked to me, 2-3 times. And each time I heard something more to what I had been telling them. They understood what I meant. And then they adopted that. So stop trying to go for the impossible. It's like these Republicans and these independents, who a lot of them are just Republican light, who don't want to be attached to MAGA. It's an impossible reach. Go for the low-hanging fruit, the 90 million people who didn't vote, and you'd be surprised.
Dr. Chachi says
they talk about expanding the map. Why are you trying to expand it in directions it just doesn't go?
So Dr. Chachi says, and people need to stop putting more work on people who've already served. The problem is that we're constantly looking for a savior. Obama has already done his work. Exactly, because even though they're former presidents, at this point, they are also private citizens. They don't have any power to actually enact things.
Right. And here's the thing. They're not going to get back in power, right? So, what is the point? People need to hear from the people who want to lead them, the people who want these positions, people who want their votes. Those are the people who need to be speaking up more. And we need to have a lot more. We have way too many Democrats who don't have a spine. Period. And guess what? If they don't have a spine in this moment, they're not going to have a spine when they're reelected. So even if they take over. I forgot who it was, what it was I was listening to, but somebody had said that even now they're pulling back on, they're thinking about making a deal on ICE if they just stop wearing the masks and wear body cameras, and yeah, we'll fund. No, don't fund them to do this work. Maybe they shouldn't have been giving $50,000 bonuses. Maybe if they shouldn't have approved, what is it, a $2 million renovation of a building. And most of that renovation money, because I read the report today, most of that renovation money is for window hangings and furniture for the director's office. Maybe they shouldn't have invested $172 million in 1 or 2 planes, 2 jets. They don't need more money. They mismanaged the money that they already had and tried to borrow more from the Department of Defense. That's why I'm telling you, you need to read these OMB reports, read these budget item things. Look, the language is challenging if you're not used to it, but go read those things. The numbers do not lie. Line item, dollar amount. Line item, dollar amount. Those things do not lie. They're already mismanaging the money. So why give them more and then say, okay, we're going to let you do your thing and terrorize people. You just can't wear masks and you have to wear body cameras. Oh, and yeah, give them more training. Give them more training. Well, the officer that killed Renee Good was a 10-year veteran. It only took, and like someone pointed out, it only took him in that he hadn't been doing that kind of stuff before. It only took him 1 year to go to the dark side. So there's no amount of training that's going to undo that. We're not at this point, it's not training, it's deprogramming. And and how do we know this? It's like anyone who has any job, right? Any person who has any job, 47 days of training for that kind of job, but you're on a 90-day, when you get a job, you're on a 90-day probationary period. Your probationary period at work is longer than their training. And not only that, someone did a video where they did try to go get a job for ICE just to see what would happen. And was like, they didn't do a background check. They didn't do this. They didn't ask for this. You know what? Yeah, that was that. And so you have to ask, who are they hiring? If they're not vetting them, who are they hiring?
There's only one reason why there's only one reason why people should vote, and that's because they know the facts and they've weighed them out, all the pros and cons, and made the best decision for themselves and their neighbors.
And I think this is the thing. You know what? I do vote. When I vote, I don't vote based on my identity, how I feel about particular social issues per se. I think about, how is this person going to handle my interests and those of my community? And I don't mean, I don't mean, take religion out of it. Even take racial politics out of it, unless there's something like this that is flat out racial profiling. I don't want to vote for someone who has never had to work a real job, who never had to really sit there especially back in old school days, and watch their parents with the checkbook out trying to pay the bills and make sure there's enough money to stretch out to the next paycheck. Donald Trump has never had to do that. And I'm sorry for everyone for whom you just got to know him on The Apprentice and as president. But I've been living in this area of the country since I was born. We all know the reason why he's not popular in New York and the tri-state area is because they hate him in Jersey. Why? He basically, especially Atlantic City, he basically tanked. Atlantic City was just as popular, almost just as popular as Las Vegas at one point. And then Trump got a casino there and tanked the whole industry. Period. Which on one hand, it was good for my state because it allowed our casinos to come up and thrive and stuff like that. But it was bad. People talked about how badly he kept his buildings for years. Even people that were paying high rents, like the wealthiest people, were like, he doesn't fix anything. So this is not someone who he doesn't understand your struggle financially at all, which is why he's off doing all the things but helping you with your money situation. Okay? He doesn't understand that. He doesn't like it. Do you know what? Do you know what he used to say about people, like the people that vote for him? He used to think you all were trash. Period. He said those things about people like you, people in the rural areas, and he thought you were trash. You don't believe me? Go back and read all those New York Times articles, interviews, and stuff from 1980s to the early 90s. Period. Donald Trump was always spilling something out of his mouth like verbal diarrhea that was really just trash talking the very kind of people that vote for him now. That's why he doesn't care. That's why he doesn't care about you right now and your pain and the things that you're suffering through. That's why he's out building $400 million ballrooms that you will never be invited to, that you'll never go to. And that is just the person that he is. So to expect that someone like that would, know what the cost of eggs cost. Okay. I bought a jar of mayonnaise for $8 the other day. Period. Everyone here who just heard me say that, you know that mayonnaise doesn't usually, in usual times, cost $8 for a 20-ounce jar of mayonnaise. And that was the cheapest one. Okay? So here's the thing. He doesn't know that. And if you were to tell him that, he can't even fake concern. He can't fake concern because he doesn't understand it. He doesn't get it. And the woman in his cabinet that told you to have one piece of chicken, one piece of broccoli, a tortilla, one corn tortilla, and something else for $3 a day, that woman is worth $15 million. I looked it up today. I went to find out how much she's worth. She's worth $15 million. But she told you to eat a $3 meal. Okay.
Comment here says, I was a social worker for 24 years and I'm 65 now. I'm ashamed to say that all the programs I worked for are the ones my higher ups are stealing from us taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. See, this is the other reason I know things, and it's probably hard for a lot of people on the right to see it, to understand it. I used to work for a state government. I used to work for 2 state governments. So I know what it's like when your state government publishes your salary, because the state of South Carolina, every year, if you made $50,000 or more, published your salary in the paper. And at that time, I just made the cutoff at 52. It's a long time ago. But yeah.
Someone said
they published it.
$4 for Miracle Whip.
Yep. Look, let me tell you something. And the thing is, because I worked for state governments, one of the things I used to have to do was look at the state budget and look at how the money was being spent. That's how come I know that if you were to go and look at the government expenditures of your taxpayer dollars and where they're spending the money and how they're spending it versus what they're telling you, you'll be like, this isn't good. This is not good. We are on par. We're already 3.5 trillion in debt. We are on par when you look at that budget and what's in the red to being 5 trillion in debt by about the end of 2027, at the start of the new year for the 2028 election. Or more, but 5 trillion is definitely the number you can see.
I was debating to put out this comment, but I'm sure you're going to respond to it. It's in good saying, I wish I could make you understand how much 47 cares about this country. If you only looked at his videos from his past, he's done so much good, I promise you.
When I was 15 years old, 1989, and I remember sitting in every freshman high school had to take study skills, right? So I was 14 going on 15. And every freshman had to take study skills. And my teacher was the art teacher. And we had a curriculum that we had to do. And one day she had to just stop because the kids in my class were crying. Young boys crying, scared to death. Because Donald Trump put an ad in the New York Times calling for the death of the quote unquote Central Park Five, now the exonerated five, before there had even been an investigation or anything. Because what he did caused in our city in Connecticut to beef up police patrols, and these little boys just walking home from school, kids, were constantly being stopped and harassed. So no, he doesn't care. You'll never convince me of that, because I remember what that was like, watching one of my best friends at the time just sit there in tears because he got stopped and frisked walking from the bus stop to his front door because of something that happened in New York City and Donald Trump's ad scaring the shit out of our local government. So no. I wish you could see how much he just doesn't care. And like I said, you can read select interviews, but I grew up listening to his nonstop BS all the time, because guess what? There's one thing you got to know about this area of the country. We have our local Connecticut ABC, CBS, NBC affiliates. We also get the New York City ones. So I've known since before he was president, I've known that he was not a good person. I've read the stories about the people that worked for him that he did not pay, who sued him. And I'm talking back in the 80s, early 90s. Yeah, sued him because he would not pay the people who worked for him. People who he contracted with lost their businesses because they did work for Donald Trump that he did not pay for. Redlining? Yeah. He took out zones where people were paying rent controlled housing, had good housing. Donald Trump, now I'll just buy the building and throw those people out in the street. He was an uncaring landlord. And here's the thing, before you all thought he cared about you, every last one of you Republicans thought he was a joke. And and let me tell you this other thing. Donald Trump, he's not a Republican. Donald Trump was always a Democrat. Up until 2014, Donald Trump was donating to Democrats. 2012. So we're not talking about Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump even donated to Kamala Harris when she was running for Attorney General in California. So the idea that he cares about you, he cares about what you can do for him. And what you did for him was put him in office so that he did not have to go to jail. Because let's be very clear, that's what this particular election was about. He tricked you into thinking it was about you and that he cared about you. He doesn't want to go to jail. That's why he's so scared about this, about the midterms, because there are articles of impeachment. And now you have Republicans talking that if he goes after Greenland, they are going to support an impeachment of him. Because guess what happens if Donald Trump gets impeached and convicted in the Senate and thrown out? All his court cases revert, especially the state ones, and he goes to jail. This is a man trying to stay out of jail, not care and concern. Because guess what? Anybody can fake care and concern. But somebody who actually cares and is concerned about you and loves you, they make sure that you're okay and not struggling. I would never watch my daughter, who I love, care about with everything in me. I would never watch her struggle and suffer, having to struggle with paying her bills. If I can help, I can help. I'm going to help her. I would rather go without. That's somebody who cares about you. Donald Trump would not rather go without so that you can have.
Okay. Jen says, remember 47 on Oprah's show in the 80s. I remember what he said on there and how bad it sounded. So many people forgot about that. Also, someone says he was impeached twice and he didn't go to jail.
Yeah, he was impeached twice and didn't go to jail because he wasn't convicted in the Senate. That's what I just said. So the senators right now have been signaling, they're like, if he does this thing on Greenland, we will vote for this. The Republicans. So watch that space. I don't know that it will happen. And I don't necessarily know that I want. Here's the thing, because either you're stuck with Trump or Trump gets impeached and then you got to deal with JD Vance.
Okay. Another comment here. 47 is not going to jail. He will never be convicted.
He's already been convicted. His sentencing was put off because he won the election. Remember that. Always remember that. He was convicted. And I'm not talking about a federal conviction. Forget all that, because the bottom line is that if a Republican wins or whatever, and I'm sure he might do it himself, is that he will pardon himself on the federal charges. It's not the federal ones you need to look at, it's the state ones. And with the stuff that's going on now, if he does those state charges, I mean, come on, you know what? If y'all believe eye for an eye, why would you be surprised that if he got impeached that Tish James is not going to come back? You all think that it was fine that, he went after her because she, quote unquote, went after him. Well, guess what? He went after her. So then that circle logic, it doesn't work.
And someone is saying here, MAGA has peaked. It'll be over soon. Historically, cults scatter when their leader is gone.
Yeah. I mean, MAGA is not going to go away. It will regroup, reform, because guess what? A lot of the MAGA people were former Tea Partiers. Things evolve, and a lot of those people were Dixiecrats or descendants of Dixiecrats, right? So it just evolves.
Okay, another comment here. Republicans or Democrats, none of them care about the people.
You know what? Both parties have their issues, but here's the thing. Until we have a system where there is a viable third party, there is one party that is blatantly doing harm and damage. Your job is not for perfection. It's for minimal harm. Your vote at this point is for minimal harm. Because guess what? Not voting is an option. Guess what happened? 90 million people didn't vote. Guess what happened? Maximum harm.
Okay, think it's time we move to another conversation topic. All right, we've exhausted a lot here, so we're going to go to another conversation topic. And again, we'll introduce it with a short little video. And
breaking news. The FBI has searched the Virginia home of Washington Post reporter Hannah Natanson, seizing her personal electronics as part of an investigation into a Pentagon contractor accused of mishandling classified material. Authorities stress that Natanson is not the target, but the raid was carried out under national security concerns at the Pentagon's request. This move follows recent changes in Justice Department policy, which now allow law enforcement to search journalists' records in leak investigations, reversing previous protections. Press freedom groups and the Washington Post have condemned the raid, warning it could chill investigative journalism and threaten the First Amendment. This case highlights the growing tension between government secrecy and the public's right to know, raising urgent questions about the future of press independence in America.
okay, our next conversation piece. FBI searches home of Washington Post reporter in pursuit of classified documents.
Before I dive into this, I'm going to say this, Dr. Vibe. I think it's funny because I was thinking about some of those last questions. People must think that we like sitting here talking about this man and what they're doing. I want to share with people. Remember what I told you was that like around over Christmas break, and in our private chat, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this for a whole year, guys, because I just don't want to do it. Right? That was my conversation. I'm like, I just don't want to do it. And if there wasn't so much craziness, and if there wasn't so much, pants on fire, hair on fire stuff, we wouldn't be here. But this is the very thing that we're talking about. Now, this is one of those things that is very much like Nazi Germany and all fascist nations. It is taking control and seizing control of the press. And I need for people to understand that. When they do that, first of all, the reporter didn't do anything wrong, right? So let's get that part off the bat. But when they take over or try to control the press, remember in the First Amendment, it talks about the right to free speech and free press, freedom of religion. They hold each other up, okay? So if he takes down one, this right to a free press, the other two will collapse with it, which is your right to free speech and your freedom of religion, the right to worship any way that you want, okay? And the reason why I say this is important and why I think we have to talk about this. One, it's beyond just this one journalist, right? It means that journalists are going to be afraid that they will be investigated for doing their jobs. So are we actually going to be getting real information, or the information that keeps the individual journalists safe? I think it's pretty pathetic that Jeff Bezos was so cowardly to not come out and support that reporter, and he's feeling it across the room. The Washington Post, I'm hearing and reading that the other journalists aren't very happy with the fact that they don't feel protected at their job. But guess what? Also, too, in normal times, like this happened once at the New York Times, there would have been a mass exodus also of those people. There was a mass exodus at Washington Post a while back, if people forget, the first time that Jeff Bezos tried to put his finger on the scale. And that was after remember, that was when they decided that they weren't going to go with their endorsement. And he pulled it because he was trying to cozy up to Donald Trump. So there's that part. But the part for me is that one of the reasons Donald Trump wants to control the narrative, I listen to what he says to reporters and how he responds to them. And it's always very telling when he starts to attack one, because he actually literally says what he's thinking. And the thing is, you never write anything nice about me. You never do this. Guess what the job of a free press is to do? It's not to be in the pocket of the politician. It's not to write always flattering things. It's to state the facts. This happened on this date, and then this, and here was the result. That's what you're taught as a journalist. And I know that. Period. That is what you're taught. An op-ed is different, but reported journalism, it's just who, where, what, when, why, how. Off the bat. But the point is that when he says, you never say anything nice about me, Donald Trump thinks it should be, and he said this, that he thinks it should be against the law for anyone to say anything bad about him. That's not how this thing works. The same way some of these people up here who are trolls are enjoying their free speech to call me the N-word up in the comments. If Donald Trump takes away free speech, y'all have the right to say that. You don't have the right to say anything that he doesn't like. So if he comes and ICE accidentally shoots you, well, too bad, so sad. You can't speak up against him.
Free speech for some and not for others, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's free speech as long as it's good about me. If it's not good about me, it's not free speech.
Free speech for me and not for thee. And Dr. Vibe, my battery's gonna run out soon.
Okay, all right. Well, we gotta make it really quick. Then
I just got the little buzz alert. It's like
Yeah, I heard a buzz there. I'm going, okay, so let's move to a last conversation piece. Civil rights icon Claudette Colvin has died.
Claudette Colvin was she was the first woman to be arrested for not giving her seat upon the bus before Rosa Parks. And I think a lot of people's misunderstanding is that, well, the reason, because she was supposed to be the test case. And so the people are like, well, the reason that they changed it was because, it had to do with colorism. It had to do with the fact that she got pregnant as a teen. Well, at the time they were doing that, she eventually did become pregnant as a young mother, teenager. But at the time that they were doing that, they weren't. And this is why I said people really need to relearn what they know about the civil rights movement. She was 15. Of course, they wanted to see if they would actually arrest a child. That was the test case. So, as these icons of that era, many of them are to the point where we're not going to have them around anymore. And if we really are about social justice and change and moving and progressing forward as a country, we have to learn from them, but we have to learn the right history about them, the correct history. We have to relearn what we think we already know. Like for example, one of the things I'm learning about and relearning is about the aftermath of the Civil War and the Reconstruction period, and how people in the South really initially were open to not having these Confederate soldiers come back to places of position after the war. But that the wealthy people, the wealthy plantation owners, helped to rewrite the history of that and retrain people into thinking, oh, this was about our heritage. This is about our states' rights. States' rights to do what exactly? Not pay taxes? No, that wasn't it. Not have slave. That's it. So the rebranding of that era is literally how Reconstruction ended and we got to Jim Crow. I think we have to relearn what we know about our civil rights icons too. Guess what? A lot of them are flawed, and everybody is human. A lot of them were flawed. It doesn't necessarily negate the work that they did, but we also have to recognize that in that entire movement, there wasn't just one leader. A lot of those marches that took place in communities and were organized by pastors, by people in the community, local business owners, teachers, regular people who just saw injustice and said, I can't not do anything. Martin Luther King wasn't at every march. One of the things I loved about being at Fisk was that they kept newspaper clippings of every story of all the marches all around the South, all the school desegregation cases all around the South. So I would go up in those archives and read. I got to read about, just these different sit-ins and movements. Martin Luther King wasn't at all of them. Okay? There were ones that just sprung up that were just, we hear about the major ones, but we don't hear about the small ones. So, and I want people to understand there were thousands of little Ruby Bridges all across the South, integrating schools, meeting the same kinds of resistance and violence perpetrated toward them just for trying to go to school and learn. But we have to, again, be curious and want to know things. Back to what we talked about at the very beginning. We should want to know things, want to know more, want to learn more, want to rethink what we know. And always question what you know. I mean, I ask myself all the time, am I thinking about this in the right way? Let me look at it from a different perspective. If I turn this around this way. My mother says that's a characteristic of me being left-handed because I have to see the world differently in a world that's designed for right-handed people. In a house, I grew up in a house with 4 right-handed people. So I had to kind of turn things away, turn things the different way. And it's funny, I'll give you a perfect example. One day I was cooking, right? My mother comes and she turns the pot handle. I had the pot handle turned out. She turns the pot handle in. She's like, no, you got to turn the pot handle in. And I'm like, no, I turn the pot handle this way because I'm left-handed. And
That's another reason why we get along. I'm left-handed too.
And my mother, had to sit there and think to me, and she was like, I never thought that you had to navigate the world differently that way. Because that when you do things like that, it's deliberate because that's convenient for you. And then, you know what? I'll tell you something. I'm left-handed. My daughter's father's left-handed. We had a right-handed child. And when it was time to teach her how to write, the person I went to was my mother. How did you teach a left-handed child how to write when everybody else was right-handed? And she told me, well, you sit to her right and put your left hand over her right hand. And and I give this example because it made me have to realize that there are some things that I know because it's how I move in the world, but then there are other things that I can still learn from other people who don't navigate that, but who might have navigated it differently and had a different experience. That's it.
Well, last comment. Someone says, I want my reparations. Okay. On that note, I think we've come to end. This has been quite the broadcast today. We got over technical difficulties. Even on my end, there were some challenges, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And sometimes you don't get good, you get done. So
Yeah.
love to say to people, thank you so much for watching live on the replay. As always, I want to thank Aisha and Lala, who's not here, for their time. If you want to get a hold of Lala, there's her information there, laurakey.net, her Etsy store, etsy.com/shop living the Lala life. And then why don't we do it proper and bring Aisha K. Staggers on this, and there we go.
Look, so unless I have to be on talking about these things, you can find me on Blue Sky. I will be taking a sabbatical from writing for a while because I do have some health challenges that I'll be having to navigate, and I'll be off this show for a couple of weeks recovering. But yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. I pop in. I also take a break because I just can't. But if you really want to get to know me, send me some recommendations from BritBox or Acorn TV to watch, because I'm beefing up my mystery thriller British thing, enjoying it. So yeah,
All right.
I accept all BritBox recommendations.
All right, fantastic. Good to have you as always. And what we'll do here is myself and put Aisha off. If you want, put her out of the screen, not put her off, put her out of the screen. Thank you very much. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is at taplink.cc/the-dr-vibeshow.com. You can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and the Dr. Vibe Show website, the-dr-vibeshow.com. All right, let's call it a day. And we got some final comments here. Ryan, who was an intern who served with us early on in 2025, and I just want to put it out here. Ryan had asked me to provide a reference for him getting a job at a telecommunications organization, one of the top 3 in Canada. I'll be totally honest, Ryan, I did it late yesterday afternoon. It was outside the window. They asked you, but I called the person back, gave a recommendation, and he goes, another great episode. Technical difficulties, forget them. He got the job. So I am so happy about that. Jen, fabulous show. Dr. Tachi, great episode. Also, Dr. Tachi, hope you get better soon. So as always, got to do it this way. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and always make it better. So we'll be back. Hopefully, Aisha will be with us and Lal will be feeling better. And also a big shout out to Dr. Tachi and everyone else. Take care of yourselves. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. Be well. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Walk good.